Imagine for a second that you are living on a rock.
Right.
And I don't mean that metaphorically. I don't mean you're, hiding under a rock avoiding the news.
Like a lot of us do.
Exactly. I mean, you are standing on a literal jagged slab of granite miles and miles from civilization.
Just completely cut off.
Completely. The only boundary you have is the ocean. It's the Indian Ocean on one side and the Great Southern Ocean on the other. It is loud. The wind it never stops.
Yeah, it's deafening.
And the only law, the only thing that separates you from total chaos is the steady mechanical rotation of a light beam.
It's a really powerful image. It's isolation in its absolute most extreme form.
So you are the keeper of this light. You are completely alone out there with your wife. And then one morning, the impossible happens.
The inciting incident.
Right. You're scanning the horizon, doing your job, and a boat washes up, just a small dinghy. And inside, there is a dead man.
And a crying baby.
And right there, you are standing on the ultimate moral precipice.
You really are. It's a moment everything changes.
So here's the question for you listening. Do you report it? Do you follow the rule book, ring the authorities, have the body collected, and send that baby to an orphanage?
Or do you do the unthinkable?
Right. Do you answer a prayer? Do you take this child who has just arrived from the vastness of the ocean and claim her as your own?
That is the central question we are wrestling with today. Welcome to our deep dive into The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman.
I'm so excited to get into this.
Me too. And I want to be clear right off the bat, this sounds like a thriller, right? And it has those elements of a mystery, but underneath all that, it is this profound exploration of isolation, duty, and the absolutely devastating things people will do for love.
Yeah, and let's be clear for everyone, we aren't just going to sit here and recount the plot.
No, that would be boring.
We want to unpack why these characters make these choices. We want to understand how trauma and isolation can completely distort your moral compass until, north looks like south.
Exactly. We have a great stack of source material today. The novel itself, some really fascinating historical context on Australian lighthouses in the 1920s, and some deep character studies to pull from.
So let's set the scene. Where in the world actually are we?
We are at Janus Rock. It is a remote lighthouse station off the coast of Western Australia.
Okay.
And the time period is really crucial here. We're starting around 1918 and moving into the 1920s. So we are in the immediate, very dark shadow of the Great War.
Right, World War I. And Janus Rock isn't just a setting in this book. It honestly feels like a character.
It does.
It's described as this square mile of green, just sitting there at the point where two massive oceans collide. It sounds terrifyingly beautiful.
And the geography is symbolic, too.
Mm-hmm.
It is named after Janus, the two-faced Roman god of doorways.
Oh, right, looking two ways.
Exactly. Janus looks both forward to the future and backward to the past. And that is exactly what this island represents for the characters. It is a place sort of suspended in time.
Almost like a bubble.
Yes. The source text describes it as having a spell that makes the rest of the world feel like make-believe.
Wow.
When you are on Janus, the mainland feels like a dream, and the rock feels like the only reality.
That concept of the spell is so important because when you are out there, the normal rules of society they feel very far away. It's almost like being on Mars.
It really is.
So let's meet the man who voluntarily chooses to go live on Mars. Let's talk about Tom Sherbourne.
Tom is such a fascinating, tragic figure. He is a World War I veteran. He spent years on the Western Front.
Right, in the thick of it.
Yeah, and the source materials is very specific about his internal state. He carries shadows.
Shadows?
Right. He isn't physically maimed like some of his comrades. He still has all his limbs, but he is spiritually hollowed out.
But wait, why a lighthouse? I mean, plenty of vets came back and went to the country to farm or just went back to their old jobs in the city. Why pick a literal rock in the middle of the ocean?
That's the key to understanding him, really. He seeks out the lighthouse service specifically because he wants isolation.
He wants to be alone.
He wants to be away from people. He wants to be away from the complexity of human life. After the chaos of the trenches, where right and wrong were completely blurred by mud and blood and gas, Tom just craves order.
He craves rules.
Yes, he loves the rules.
The instructions to lightkeepers, that's his,
It's a gospel. He finds so much comfort in the logbook. The logbook represents objective truth for him.
Because it's just facts.
Exactly. You write down the wind speed, you write down the weather, you write down the ship's passing. It is verifiable. It is true. For a man who feels completely broken inside, the mechanical rotation of the light and those strict regulations, they provide a scaffold.
They hold him together.
They do. They keep him from falling apart.
Let's talk about the mechanics for a second, because the book goes into a lot of detail on this, and it's not just, it's not just flipping a light switch on the wall.
Oh, absolutely not. This is 1920s technology.
Yeah.
The light is a literal fire inside a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tom is dealing with vaporized kerosene under extreme high pressure. He has to pump the air tanks. He has to preheat the burner with methylated spirits.
So it's very manual.
It's a dangerous, high-stakes machine. If he gets the pressure wrong, the mantle blackens, or worse, the whole thing could explode.
And the rotation, how's the light actually spin?
The lens floats in a bath of mercury to reduce friction.
Wait, mercury, like actual toxic mercury?
Yes, tons of it.
Oh my God.
And he has to strain the mercury through a chamois cloth to clean it. So he's breathing these fumes. It's a solitary, toxic, and deeply hypnotic job. He has to wind the weights every couple of hours just to keep the lens turning.
Like a giant grandfather clock.
Exactly like that. It's a ritual. Tick-tock, tick-tock. That rhythm replaces the noise of the war in his head.
Okay, so you have this man who is meticulously following the rules to keep his sanity. He is just a machine of duty at this point.
Yes.
And then you introduce the variable that changes absolutely everything. Enter Isabel Grace, Mark.
Isabel is the catalyst. If Tom is the rock, Isabel is the wind and the waves.
I love that contrast between them.
It's stark. She is young. She is vibrant. She's the daughter of a headmaster in the mainland town of Point Partes. And she just totally breaks through Tom's defenses.
Tom is trying to numb himself, and Isabel is she's overflowing with life. She actually proposes to him, doesn't she? Or at least she's the one completely driving the relationship.
She is very forward, yes. She sees something in his stoicism that she interprets as strength, and he is drawn to her life force.
He probably can't believe his luck.
He really can't believe that someone so alive would want him. He feels unworthy. But she persists. So they marry, and he moves out to Janus Rock with him.
And at first it sounds incredibly romantic. Our own world, just the two of them against the elements.
It does. But this is where the isolation turns from a sanctuary into a pressure cooker. We have to talk about the tragedy that occurs on that island before the boat ever even shows up.
Right.
Because without understanding Isabel's grief, the rest of the story makes absolutely no sense. You can't just look at the kidnapping as a crime. You have to look at the context.
Right. It's not just that she wants a baby, it's that she loses them.
Multiple times. Isabel suffers 3 devastating losses out on the island. 2 miscarriages and 1 stillbirth.
Oh, that's just...
And the source material describes the 3rd loss in such visceral detail.
Describe that scene for us, because I think it's really pivotal for listeners to grasp her mindset.
Okay, so she is alone on the island with Tom. There's no doctor, no midwife.
No telephone to call for help, right?
Nothing. She births a baby boy who is already gone. And Tom has to build the coffin.
God.
Tom has to dig the grave himself on the cliff edge.
That is horrifying.
It is trauma upon trauma. There's a scene described where she is at the gravesite, and the wind is howling. Remember, the wind never stops on Janus, and she imagines she hears a baby crying in the wind.
That gives me chills.
That is the key moment.
Yeah.
She is medically and emotionally shattered. The experts analyzing this point out that we have to look at this through the lens of what we now understand about postpartum grief and psychosis.
She isn't just sad.
No, she is in a state of desperate biological mourning. Her body is ready to mother a child, her hormones are screaming for a baby, and her arms are empty.
And Tom, how does he handle it? Because he's the fixer, right? He fixes the light. Can he fix this?
He feels completely useless. He can fix a vapor tube, he can polish the brass, he can navigate by the stars, but he cannot fix his wife's grief.
You can't fix her.
Right. He buries his own pain to try and support her, but he is fundamentally helpless. He sees the woman he loves disintegrating in front of his eyes, and he can't do a single thing about it.
So you have this total powder keg.
Yeah.
You have a man desperate to follow the rules to keep the darkness at bay, and a woman who is drowning in grief, isolated from any support network.
Yes.
And then the date is April 27th, 1926.
The inciting incident finally arrives.
A dinghy washes up on Janus. And inside, as we said, is a dead man and a screaming, living baby girl.
And immediately, their 2 worldviews just collide. Tom's reaction is immediate duty. He goes straight to the logbook.
Of course he does.
He prepares to signal the mainland. He says, it's all got to go on the log. That is his safety mechanism. If it's in the log, it's handled. It's objective truth.
But Isabel reacts with immediate maternal instinct. She picks up that baby, she feeds her, she bathes her, and she says something that really sets the stage for the conflict.
Yes.
She calls the baby a gift from God.
Versus flotsam. That is the dichotomy here. To Tom, this is a maritime incident. It's a dead body and a survivor that must be reported.
It's a statistic.
Exactly. But to Isabel, this is divine intervention.
Yeah.
She has literally just been praying at her son's grave, and the ocean delivers a baby.
The argument they have here is intense. I want to slow down here because this is the moment where their lives fracture. Isabel begs him to wait, just to wait. What is her logic?
Her logic is entirely constructed from her grief, but it has a certain internal consistency to it. She argues that the father in the boat is dead. She assumes the mother must have drowned because what mother would put a baby in a boat alone unless she fell out?
That makes sense.
So she argues if they report it, the baby goes to an orphanage.
And we need to pause on orphanage because today we think of foster care, which obviously has its issues, but in 1920s Western Australia, what are we actually talking about?
We're talking about grim, brutal institutions. Very high mortality rates, rampant abuse, zero love. It was a bleak existence.
And Isabel knows this.
She knows it.
Yeah.
She argues that sending the baby back is actually the cruel choice. She says we can love her, we can give her a home.
But Tom resists. He says it is illegal, it is morally wrong, it is a lie.
He holds the line, at first.
So how does she break him? Because Tom is the ultimate rule follower. He does not break rules.
It's the compromise. And this is how these things always happen. It's not one big decision to just be evil. It's a tiny concession.
Just a little slip.
Right. Tom agrees to delay the signal just for a day.
Oh, Tom.
He sees how frantic Isabel is. He sees her finally smiling after years of deep depression. And he thinks, I'll let her calm down. I'll let her hold the baby for one night. Then we will report it.
Just one day. That's the trap.
That is the slippery slope. Because the day turns into two. Isabel bonds with the baby. The baby stops crying. The domestic scene becomes peaceful for the first time in years. And Tom is just weak in the face of her happiness.
And then they make the decision. They name her Lucy. They bury the man on the island, and this is the part that is technically the massive crime. They claim the baby is their own.
Because Isabel was close enough to her due date with a stillborn baby, right?
Yes, exactly. They haven't seen anyone from the mainland in months. The supply boat hasn't come, so they can literally pass this child off as the child she was carrying.
But to do that, Tom has to falsify the logbook.
That is the slide. The expert insight on this is so good. Tom does this entirely to save his wife. He really believes she is on the brink of complete madness. He sacrifices his own code, his own morality, to create a new reality where she can just be happy.
But let's be real for a second. Is he saving her, or is he just avoiding the conflict? Is he afraid that if he takes the baby away, she will kill herself?
I think that's exactly it. He looks at her and sees a woman hanging by a thread. If he snatches that baby away to give to the authorities, he cuts the thread.
So he chooses the sin. He chooses the lie.
And it works. That's the crazy part of the story. For a while, it actually works.
That is the parallel worlds aspect of this deep dive. We have the Battle of Janus Rock.
Life on Janus becomes perfect, or seemingly perfect. Lucy grows up so loved, she calls herself Lulu Lighthouse.
Which is adorable.
So cute. She helps Tom with the lantern. The source material describes these beautiful golden scenes of them carrying her on their shoulders, the three of them against the world. It's idyllic.
But underneath it all, Tom is rotting. Mentally rotting. He has terrible nightmares. He literally feels the weight of the dead man, the man he buried with his own hands. He knows there is a body in the ground that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, you can't just forget that.
He tries to rationalize it. He tells himself, well, he's dead, she's happy. But Tom is fundamentally a man of conscience. The lie eats at him. Every single time he writes in the logbook, he is reminded of the entry he didn't write.
And then, obviously, the bubble has to burst. They have to return to the mainland for shore leave. Lucy's a toddler now. They go back to Point Partouze.
And this is where the tragedy totally shifts gears. Because up until now, the victim has been abstract.
Right, it was just the dead man in the boat.
And the assumed dead mother. But when they get to town, they encounter the reality.
They see a memorial, don't they?
Yes. They're walking through town, and they see a memorial bench and a plaque for Frank Roenfeld and his daughter Grace.
Grace. That's Lucy's real name.
Yes. And they realize the mother is not dead. Her name is Hannah Roenfeld, and she is very much alive. In fact, she's the daughter of the wealthiest man in town, Septimus Ponce.
Oh, wow. So she's not just anyone. She's a very prominent figure in the town.
And she is essentially haunting the town. She is described as a ghost in her own life, just wandering the streets, waiting for news of her baby.
We find out the backstory of the dead man in the boat, Frank, at this point, too. It wasn't just a random boating accident, was it?
No, and this adds a layer of social commentary to the story that is really important to understand. We have to talk about the intense anti-German sentiment in Australia post-World War I.
Right, because Frank was Austrian.
Yes, Frank Ronfeld. Now, you have to understand the historical context. This is 1926. The war ended in 1918. Australia lost a massive percentage of its young men. We're talking 60,000 dead from a population of fewer than 5 million.
That is staggering.
Every town has a memorial. Every single family is grieving someone.
So when a healthy Austrian man walks down the street...
It's not just awkwardness. It's visceral hatred. They call him a Hun. They refuse to serve him in shops. He represents the enemy that killed their sons and brothers.
So the backstory is that Frank didn't just drift away on a nice sail. He was fleeing.
He was fleeing a drunken mob. On the night he disappeared, a group of men were coming for him. He took the baby in the boat to get away from the immediate threat, intending to go just a short distance down the coast to hide.
But the ocean had other plans.
The current caught him. The great Southern Ocean doesn't forgive mistakes. He wasn't abandoning the mother. He was desperately trying to protect the child from the town's rage.
That makes it so much more tragic. He died trying to save his daughter, and because of the prejudice, the town probably assumed the absolute worst of him.
Exactly. The gossip was, oh, the Hun took the baby and ran. Or he was a spy. So Hannah, the mother, has had to live not only with the devastating loss of her family, but with the entire town trashing her husband's memory.
So Tom sees Hannah. He sees her grief up close, and he just can't handle it.
He really can't. Isabel is terrified of losing Lucy, so she doubles down. She justifies their silence by saying, she thinks I'm her mother. It would break her heart to change now.
Using the kid as a shield.
She absolutely uses the child's well-being as a shield. But Tom makes a move.
The anonymous note.
Yes. He slips an anonymous note to Hannah. It says, your husband is at peace. Your child is safe.
Why on earth does he do that? That seems so incredibly risky.
It's guilt. Pure guilt. He thinks he is giving her comfort. He wants to relieve her suffering, specifically the agony of not knowing without exposing Isabel. He wants to tell her, your husband didn't run away, he died a good man, and your baby is alive.
But of course, it has the exact opposite effect.
Totally backfires. It stirs the pot. It gives her desperate hope that there was foul play or that the child is out there waiting to be found. It reignites the entire police investigation. Tom thinks he's pouring water on the fire, but he's pouring gasoline.
And that leads us to the unraveling. Because there's a clue. There's always a clue.
The silver rattle.
Let's unpack this. When they found the baby in the boat, there was a silver rattle. Tom kept it. Why? Why would you keep the one piece of physical evidence that could definitively link you to a kidnapping?
That is the million-dollar question. Was it sentiment? Maybe deep down, a subconscious desire to be caught.
Self-sabotage.
Right. Or maybe he just felt it belonged to the child, and he couldn't bring himself to throw it in the ocean.
But years later, after seeing Hannah's pain, Tom sends the rattle to her.
He wraps it up and mails it.
Again, he thinks he's being kind.
The source material clarifies that he sends it to give her something, anything, of her child. He sees how much she is suffering with literally nothing to hold on to. He wants her to have a piece of her baby.
But this is the fatal error. The rattle is unique. It's identifiable.
And the police get involved. They trace it. And eventually they connect the timing. The boat is the key piece of evidence, but the rattle is the catalyst that breaks the case open. They realize that the couple on the lighthouse, who miraculously produced a baby around the exact same time a baby went missing, are the prime suspects.
So the police come out to Janus. The game is up. Just imagine that moment. You are on your rock, you look out, and you see the police boat coming. You know your life is over.
It's the end of the world. Everything you've built is gone.
And this is where Tom does something, well, it's heroic, in a very twisted way.
He realizes Isabel is going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
If she goes to prison, she will die. She is just too fragile. So he decides to take the full blame.
He confesses.
He confesses, but he lies.
Yeah.
He tells the police that he bullied Isabel into keeping the baby.
Oh, wow.
He claims she wanted to report it from day one, but he forced her silence. He paints himself as the domineering, abusive husband.
He paints himself as the villain to save her.
He wants to spare Isabel from prison. His motivation is that maybe if she is seen as a victim, she can still be a mother to Lucy in some way, or at least be a free woman. He sees this as his ultimate penance.
Penance for the lie.
Penance for the lie, yes, but also, deeper down, penance for surviving the war. Penance for being the one who lived when so many good men died. He's finally paying the bill.
So Tom goes to jail. He is facing serious, heavy charges. Kidnapping, fraud, maybe even manslaughter regarding the man in the boat. But how does Isabel react? You'd think she would be on her knees grateful that he took the fall for her.
You would think. But this is where the story gets incredibly dark and deeply human. She is devastated, yes, but she is furious.
Furious. Her husband is going to prison for her crime and she's mad at him.
She feels betrayed. Because by sending the rattle, by tipping off the police, Tom gave away Lucy. She doesn't see his sacrifice. She sees the betrayal of their family unit. She thinks, you promised we would keep her, and you broke the promise.
So when the police question her threat,
she doesn't deny his false confession. She lets him rot.
She just lets him take it.
She is so consumed by the loss of the child that she's willing to let him go to prison for a crime he didn't commit alone.
That is cold. That is really hard to read.
It is grief. It is rage.
Yeah.
It's the incredibly ugly side of love. She loves the child more than she loves Tom in that moment.
And what about the child? Lucy or Grace?
This is honestly the most heartbreaking part. We have to look at this from the kid's perspective. She is 4 years old. She has only ever known Tom and Isabel. She has only ever known the Rock.
That's her whole universe.
Suddenly, strange men in uniforms come and take her away.
And hand her to a complete stranger.
Hannah. Her biological mother, yes, but to the child, a complete stranger.
The source material describes this vividly. She screams for Mama, meaning Isabel. She violently rejects Hannah.
It's the King Solomon moment, but without the wisdom. Who is the real mother? The one who gave birth or the one who raised her? The book really explores the psychological damage done to the child by this sudden switch. She is traumatized. She runs away trying to find the lighthouse. She doesn't want to be Grace. She wants to be Lulu Lighthouse.
So you have Hannah, who finally has her daughter back, but the daughter hates her. You have Isabel, who has lost everything and is letting her husband go down. And you have Tom in a cell, just accepting his fate. It feels like a tragedy with no exit. Everyone loses.
But there is a turning point.
Yeah.
It comes from a really unlikely source.
Ralph Atticott.
The boatman. The guy who brought them supplies all those years. He's a gruff character, but he plays a massive role here.
What does he actually do?
He confronts Isabel. He is the only one who sees the whole picture. He knows Tom. He knows Tom isn't a bully. And he challenges Isabel.
What does he say to her?
He basically holds a mirror up to her face. He tells her Tom is going to prison for her. He challenges her love and her morality. He asks her if she can really live with herself, knowing an innocent man. The man who loved her enough to completely ruin his life for her is rotting in a cell.
And that wakes her up.
That, and she finds a letter.
A letter from Tom.
Yes, a letter expressing his enduring love despite absolutely everything. He doesn't blame her. He writes, "Know that you have always been beloved."
That breaks me. After she abandoned him, he still writes that.
It breaks the dam for her. Isabel realizes that her love for the child has made her hateful to the man who saved her.
So she goes to the police.
She rushes to the court just in time. She admits the truth. She says, "It was my idea. I begged him."
And what is the outcome? Do they both just go to prison forever?
The source material focuses on the emotional resolution more than the legal minutiae. But because of the unique circumstances, the grief, the loss, the fact that they did care for the child very well, they serve relatively short sentences. They are eventually released.
But they lose Lucy.
They lose custody forever. That is the price they pay. Lucy remains with Hannah.
So let's jump to the end, the years later segment. Because the book doesn't just end in the courtroom.
No. Isabel and Tom serve their time. They eventually rebuild their lives. They move to a farm away from the sea.
That's significant. Away from the temptation.
Away from the isolation. They heal. Their love survives the trauma, which is a miracle in itself. Isabel eventually dies. And then we have the final visitor.
Lucy comes back.
An adult Lucy Grace. She visits Tom, and she brings her own baby.
That brings it so beautifully full circle.
It does. She thanks him. She thanks him for saving her from the boat. She acknowledges the complexity of her two families. She says she had two mothers. She has made peace with her past.
And the final image.
Tom, sitting on his veranda, watching the light. He is at peace.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot. It's heavy, but it's beautiful. I want to go back and really unpack some of these segments because the devil is in the details here. We glossed over the philosophy a bit, and I think that's crucial to understanding the whole book.
Absolutely. The conflict between Tom and Isabel isn't just a marital spat. It's a clash of two major ethical systems.
Break that down for us. Explain it like I'm 5.
Okay. So Tom represents what philosophers call deontology. This is rule-based ethics. Think of Immanuel Kant. The idea is that some actions are just wrong, regardless of the consequences. Stealing a baby is wrong. Lying is wrong. It doesn't matter if you think it will make everyone happy. The act itself is inherently tainted.
So Tom is the rules are rules guy.
Exactly. Duty is supreme. On the other side, you have Isabel. She represents utilitarianism. This is outcome-based ethics. The idea is, what action creates the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people?
So she just looks at the math.
She looks at the math. She thinks, the father is dead. The mother is probably dead. If we send the baby back, she goes to an orphanage, which is a bad outcome. If we keep her, she gets a loving home, and I stop crying, which is a good outcome. Therefore, keeping her is the moral thing to do.
When you put it that way, it's really hard to argue with her.
That's why the book is so good. You find yourself actively agreeing with the kidnapper, because her logic holds up until you introduce Hannah.
Right, Hannah breaks the math.
Exactly. Once you realize there is a grieving mother, the utilitarian calculation completely falls apart. Now, keeping the baby causes immense ongoing suffering to Hannah.
And that's when Tom can't take it anymore. His deontology, his sense of duty kicks back in.
Yes. The instructions to lightkeepers win in the end.
I want to touch on the light metaphor again. The title is The Light Between Oceans.
It's a beautiful title. It refers to the physical location Janus Rock sits literally between the Indian and Southern Oceans. But it also refers to the characters themselves. They are fluid. They're between states, between right and wrong, between grief and healing.
And the light itself, is it the truth?
The light is the truth. Think about what a lighthouse actually does. It cuts through the darkness, it reveals things, it warns ships of danger. Tom tried to hide from the light, in a way. He tried to hide the truth in the darkness of that island. But the light always rotates. It always comes back around. You can't hide in the dark forever.
That's deep. The lighthouse is a symbol of absolute vigilance. You cannot sleep on the watch.
And Tom slept on his moral watch. Just for a moment, that one-day delay and the wreckage was total.
Let's talk about the villain problem here. Because usually in a kidnapping story, there's an obvious bad guy. But here...
Who is the villain? Is it Isabel? She's a grieving mother who saves a baby's life? Is it Tom? He tries to protect his fragile wife. Is it Hannah? She just wants her kid back.
It's a tragedy of circumstance.
And a tragedy of good people making impossible choices. It reminds me of that saying, hurt people hurt people.
Very much so. Isabel was hurt by life, and she hurt Hannah. Tom was hurt by the war, and he hurt Isabel by trying to fix everything.
And Lucy is the survivor of it all.
She is the resilience. She integrates both worlds. She becomes Lucy Grace. The hyphen is so important. She accepts the love from both mothers.
That final scene with her visiting Tom, it's so forgiving. It says that love, even when it's complicated and flawed and started with a lie, leaves a mark. And that mark matters.
Know that you have always been beloved.
Yes.
I want to pivot back to the war for a second, because we mentioned the shadows Tom carries, but I feel like that explains everything about his character.
We really can't overstate the impact of World War I on this generation. We are talking about men who lived in trenches with rats and lice and decaying bodies for years. They saw their best friends blown apart. Then they come home, and society just expects them to be normal.
Thanks for your service. Here's a farm. Get over it.
Exactly. Tom's trauma is what makes him so vulnerable to Isabel. He feels he doesn't deserve happiness. He feels guilty for simply being alive.
Survivor's guilt.
Huge survivor's guilt. So when the baby arrives, think about it. He watched men die and couldn't stop it. It was completely arbitrary. No, a baby arrives. It's another arbitrary event. But this time, it's life, not death.
He feels like he owes the universe.
Maybe. Or he feels that he has no right to interfere with fate. He watched men die and couldn't save them. Now baby arrives. Who is he to say no? Put her back.
It paralyzes him.
It does. His survivor's guilt makes him passive in the face of Isabel's ferocity. He feels he doesn't have the moral authority to say no to life because he saw so much death.
That is a brilliant insight. I hadn't connected that. He feels he's used up his no card.
Exactly. He just yields.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly recap. We have a couple isolated on a rock. A baby washes up. A decision is made that shatters two families.
And a resolution that somehow finds peace in the wreckage.
There are no villains here, only people trying to navigate love and loss in a world without a map.
That's the real takeaway. We're all just trying to keep our lights burning.
So here is the so what for you, the listener. Why does this story stick with us? Why are we talking about a book from 2012 set in 1926?
Because it forces us to ask the uncomfortable question, what would we do? It's easy to be moral when the stakes are low. It's easy to say, I wouldn't steal a baby when you're sitting in your comfortable house. But put yourself on that rock. Put yourself in that grief.
If doing the right thing meant destroying the person you love most, could you do it?
Could you send that rattle? Could you make the call that sends your wife to prison?
That is the question. And honestly, I don't know if I could.
I don't think any of us know until the boat washes up.
And here is a final provocative thought for you to mull over.
The lighthouse is designed to keep ships safe by warning them to stay away. Danger here. Keep off.
Tom and Isabel tried to use the lighthouse for the exact opposite purpose. They used it to keep the world away so they could be safe.
They turned the warning inward. They tried to create an island where the rules didn't apply.
But in the end, isolation isn't safety. Truth is.
Is there a secret in your life that you think is protecting someone?
When it might actually be the very thing that will eventually break them.
That is the thought to leave you with today.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive on the light between oceans. Keep your light burning.
And watch the horizon.